So today's video is a sequel to my previous video on how to prepare for the SAT. And essentially, like I mentioned before, the preparation for the SAT does not start in high school, but it starts in primary school and in middle school. And it essentially depends on the number of the books you have read and the quality of the books you have read. So again, this should be a mixture of science fiction, fiction, non-fiction, fantasy, and so on. So I'll give you a list of books today which can help you to get started on the preparation for this kind of standardized test. And if you have not been a reader of some of the literature which is useful for such test preparation, then this can get you started off on such preparation. So I'll start with some simple books first. So I think one of the simple books to read, which you can read and which is somewhat of a classic also, is Jack London's The Call of the Wild. And this is essentially a story of a dog who moves from a suburb to a wilderness setting. And metaphorically, you can consider this story to be a story of self-discovery. So again, Call of the Wild by Jack London. You can see it here. It's a very thin book, very easy to read, just 94 pages. So again, I would recommend this as a good book to start reading fiction, which is not necessarily just mystery novels or thrillers or romance novels, but something more deep compared to that. Now the next book on my list is The Old Man and the Sea, and this again is a very thin book. I think here I see it is 99 pages. So you can see this book here, and this is essentially a fable of an old man, a young person, and a giant fish. And interestingly, this book got the Nobel Prize of Literature. So again, very thin book, very simple to read, and a good starting point for people who want to delve into some classic fiction which is of high quality. The third thin book on my list is Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. And this is also very thin. You can see here my version is 100 pages. So all these books are 100 pages and below. Now this book is a kind of fantastical book about a small family in the Germanic lands, where it's a particularly peculiar situation which happens, and when you read this book you may feel that this is a very weird piece of literature, but then after some time you may realize that the author is trying to talk in metaphorical terms about the certain issues in modern society and about certain aspects of sociology and psychology which have greater ramifications. Next book on my list is The Caves of Steel. It's the robot series by Asimov. And again, this is a great science fiction writer. So again, I think this book can start you off into this particular type of literature. So again, beside the robot series, there is also the Foundation series of novel by this person. And again, this person was a technical person, and then he started getting into the field of literature, and his books are an excellent way to investigate the complexities of some of modern life, and he looks at situations where sometime in the future robots may be living with humans and the various sociological and political issues which may come up because of this particular situation. The next book on my list is Bleak House by Charles Dickens, and this is a Victorian novel set in Britain in the 19th century. And again, the book is a very nice piece of work of Charles Dickens, and again it can take you to some of the problems during that particular time of history, and also it will get you introduced to Charles Dickens novels. So again, Bleak House by Charles Dickens. This is not a thin book. This is about 930 pages plus, so but it's less bleak than it sounds. It's actually quite a good book to read. The next book on my list is Lord of the Rings by Tolkien, and this book has also been made into a motion picture, so many of you are probably familiar with the whole theme of medieval Earth where there are fantastical creatures, and there is the so-called Dark Lord Sauron, and there is a struggle for a particular ring. And again, the interesting thing about this book is the way the author creates scenarios and makes them seem very real, and also he tries to portray different aspects of humanity and philosophy through this particular book. Now, the next book on my list is by James Joyce, and this is one of the books of James Joyce which is the simplest to read. That's what I think. And this book can get you started off on reading somewhat more complicated literature. And this book is 238 pages in the version which I have. And this is a book about a young person and the issues he goes through because of religion, politics, and some of these factors. And these factors are relevant today as they were during the time the author wrote the book. So now let us switch to nonfiction. So one of my recommendations is De Bono's book, Teach Yourself to Think. And this is an interesting and important book which discusses about different methods of thinking. So most of us resort to very simple methods of thinking, and we have not given much importance to thinking as a problem itself. And I think this book can help you in terms of becoming better at problem solving in general. So which is one of the aspects you deal with college life as well as life beyond that. So again, this book is 254 pages, De Bono's Teach Yourself to Think. Next book on my list is by Malcolm Gladwell, and this is the story of success. So essentially in this book, the author discusses about different ways in which people succeed and why some people succeed and why some don't. So there is a kind of nature-nurture debate which takes place in the book, and the author comes up with various constructs which he has devised, by which he has figured out the fundamental tools for success. So I think again this book is useful for somebody who wants to delve slightly into issues of sociology and psychology and some of these social science type of fields. And next book on my list is more of a poetic type of book, and this is The Warrior of the Light. So Warrior of the Light, a very nice poetic book which is highly motivational. And I would recommend that you take a look at this book. This is just 136 pages. It's very easy to read, but it's not so much in its writing as in its philosophy, which the author gives here. And this philosophy can help you a lot in terms of motivation throughout your high school days and your college days. And beyond this book, there is one book which probably comes closer to mathematics and can help you on mathematical aspects. So that is Fooled by Randomness by Nassim Taleb. So I found this book to be extremely interesting and well written, and this book is something like 310 pages or so. And again, this book has an interesting fact that it combines aspects of probability and business, markets, and the role that luck plays in our life, and also the fact that many people tend to get fooled by situations because of their imprecise knowledge of probability. So again, this is a very interesting book, Fooled by Randomness by Taleb. So again, these are just a sampling of some of the books which can get you started on a series of different directions as far as reading is concerned. And once you read these books, I'm sure you are going to find many more books to read further and become somewhat of a bibliophile down the road. So again, this is a pleasurable way to prepare for any standardized test, whether you are preparing for the SAT or the ACT. And also I have made a separate list of books for people preparing for the GRE and GMAT, and many of those books are at a slightly more complex level and may have more deep aspects about things which you can look at. So if some of you are precautious, then you may want to take a look at some of those books which I have suggested for the GRE. And beside that, I would generally suggest that you frequent your school library or public libraries which are there and try to read as many books of a more complex nature which will help you do better in standardized examination. And make sure that whenever you read these books, you make it a point to note down all the difficult words and to ensure that you know all the difficult words in the context in which they are used in this particular book. So that is probably the best way to enrich your vocabulary rather than just to read word lists. So again, I hope you enjoyed this video and thank you for watching my channel. Please subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much.